Hello, everyone. Now, I know that it's hard to keep up on top of what's going on in the Holy Land, but if you want to know more about what's happening here in Israel, I'm Aaron Porras, and this is the Weekly Review. In other news, UNRA, or the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees, facing an existential budget crisis. The organization calling for an immediate infusion of $120 million to keep essential healthcare, education, and other such services running. Additionally, UNRWA Commissioner General Philippe Lazzarini announcing the request for another $800 million from a donor conference scheduled for November. UNRWA's financial woes not from nothing, though. The EU, US, and other world leaders canceling or otherwise conditioning their aid to UNRWA on UNRWA's reforming of its educational curriculum. According to many reports, Palestinian school books continue to consistently show a systematic insertion of violence, martyrdom, and jihad across all grades and subjects. And UNRWA staff are not much better. UN Watch's Hillel Neuer repeating calls to remove UNRWA educators who routinely preach violence and hatred before being cut off by the president of the UN Human Rights Council with a made-up rule.
Nahed Sharawi, an UNRWA math teacher in Gaza, posted a video of Adolf Hitler, along with quotes to enrich and enlighten your thoughts and minds. Hosni Masri, an UNRWA teacher in the West Bank, posted anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about how Jews control the world, created the coronavirus, and seek to destroy Islam. Esra Abdul Rahim,
I asked the Secretary to pause this video. I have noticed that in the course of this video, derogatory, insulting, and inflammatory remarks have been made, which in particular refer directly to specific individuals. This amounts to personal attacks against those individuals, and it is not acceptable in this forum.
And now for a story straight out of Hollywood. Israeli billionaire Teddy Sagi escaping an assassination attempt on the island of Cyprus. The 48-year-old Sagi, who lives in Cyprus, fleeing the country immediately after being warned by Cypriot police, and the suspect has since been arrested. According to reports, after several days of tracking the suspect's movements, Cypriot police detained a 38-year-old Azeri national for allegedly being hired to carry out the hit. This as the suspect crossed from the Turkish-controlled northern Cyprus into the independent south on a Russian passport. Further, police seizing a gun, ammunition, and a silencer from a car that the suspect had rented. The officers also now looking for any accomplices, but if there are any, it's believed that they're either hiding in the Turkish-controlled north or fled the country altogether. The only question remaining then is who sent the alleged assassin and why? And there are several theories, though they tend to contradict one another. Sagi, the founder of gambling company, software company Playtech, believes that this was an Iranian terror plot. Cyprus, on the other hand, discounting Iranian involvement completely. Then Israel, at first, likewise pointing fingers away from Iran and instead towards potential financial or business-related disputes. Though shortly following the initial reactions, Israel officials now changing their tune. The Prime Minister's spokesperson saying that Iran is behind the assassination attempt and that it should be considered a terror plot, but that the attempt was actually on Israeli business people in Cyprus in general and not necessarily against Sagi at all. Intense series of secret operations confirmed this week by Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. The premier disclosing scant details of a recent Mossad initiative to learn more about soldier Ron Arad. Arad's been considered missing in action since his capture in 1986.
בחודש שעבר יצאו נשות ואנשי המוסד למבצע שתכליתו לאתר מידע חדש על גורלו ומקום הימצאו של רון ארד. זה היה מבצע מורכב, רחב ממדים ונועז. זה כל מה שאפשר לומר כרגע.
Responding to Arabic language reports, Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett confirming all but the key details of a dangerous mission to finally close the chapter on IDF soldier Ron Arad. Arad, assumed captured by Lebanese militants in 1986, was never seen again, and he's considered missing in action, though he's also suspected dead since 1988. Still, the whereabouts of his body and the details of both his disappearance and captivity remain unconfirmed, hence the latest operations to find him.
פדיון שבויים הוא ערך יהודי שהפך לאחד מערכיה המקודשים ביותר של מדינת ישראל. עם אשר לא יחשה שאת בניו לא יפקיר לזר. זה מסוג הדברים שנראים משונים, אפילו מוגזמים למי שמתבונן על מדינת ישראל מבחוץ. אבל זה מה שמגדיר ומייחד אותנו.
Now, according to reports, the Mossad spy agency conducting two separate missions. In one, the Mossad allegedly taking a DNA sample from a body in Lebanon believed to be Arad's. And in the second operation, Mossad agents reportedly kidnapping an Iranian general, transferring him to an unnamed African country, and interrogating him until his eventual release. Though the original reports neither specifying the identity of the general nor whether the general is in active duty. In any case, contradicting earlier reports, the Prime Minister's office later claiming that the missions were successful, though again, details are still a tightly kept secret. Born in Hod HaSharon, Israel, Arad became a combat navigator in the Israeli Air Force in 1979. In 1986, on a mission to attack PLO targets in Lebanon, the bomb he and pilot Yishai Aviram dropped apparently exploded prematurely, forcing them to eject. Aviram was discovered by Israeli forces within hours, but Arad was captured by the Lebanese Amal military group, after which he's thought to have changed captors between Iran and Hezbollah forces. Then subsequent negotiations to free him later failing in 1988, around the time he's alleged to have been tortured to death during interrogation. And several operations to locate him or details of his capture ensuing in the coming decades, all to no avail. Arad is survived by widow Tami and daughter Yuval. Moving on, a neglected eyesore, a dangerous nuisance, and one of the biggest sources of pollution in the state of Israel. These are just some of the charming adjectives used to describe the central bus station in South Tel Aviv, the second largest bus station in the world. And it's been this way practically since its opening nearly 30 years ago. But residents in the station's periphery won't have to suffer much longer, as the government has finally announced plans to shut it down. ILTV's Chana Rifkin with the details.
התחנה המרכזית, אחד המקומות הכי מזוהמים במדינת ישראל. היא המטרד הסביבתי, חברתי, תחבורתי, מהקשים ביותר בתולדות מדינת ישראל.
Nearly 30 years since its official opening, and the massive maze-like central bus station in South Tel Aviv is set to be shut down. And Transportation Minister Merav Michaeli announcing the news on Tuesday, making good on one of her many campaign promises. Michaeli saying that while, quote, it won't happen overnight, this eyesore, which is an environmental, health, and transportation hazard, will be cleared from here. Essentially, the outline is to reroute all lines away from the station by late 2023 and to completely dismantle the concrete ramp used by the buses by 2025. As for the building itself, within 5 to 10 years after the station's closure, the enormous 230,000 square meter plot of land will be repurposed, though it's unclear whether this means leveling the site or heavily renovating it. Architects warning that the building's concrete shell will be virtually impossible to knock down and would coat the city in dust for weeks if attempted. It's also not yet clear where the bus lines will be rerouted to or where a new bus station will be built, if at all. But in any case, the move being welcomed by residents nearby who've long been decrying the negative impacts of the station.
האוויר שנמדד בתחנה המרכזית גבוה בהרבה ממה שמותר בחוק.
30% יותר פליטת חנקן דו-חמצני מהמותר.
בשכונות העוטפות את התחנה המרכזית יש פי 2 מקרי סרטן ביחס לשאר העיר, ותחלואה עודפת משמעותית של מחלות לב ונשימה.
And it's not just impacting residents' health. Located in the poorest part of the city, the station rife with crime, drug addicts, prostitution and sexual assaults, homeless squatters, and even murder. One abandoned section of the station has even been inhabited by a massive colony of bats.
המקום הזה מוזנח כבר שנים. הוא מהווה בסיס לפשיעה.
סחר בסמים, סחר בנשים ואלימות קשה מאוד.
Despite breaking ground in December 1967, it wasn't until 1993 that the station was finally completed, and at the time of its opening, it was the largest station on Earth. But it was mirrored nearly from the get-go with financial difficulties and arguments between investors, bus companies, designers, business owners, and the government. So by the time the doors were opened, the city's bus center had already migrated north and the area fallen into poverty. And by January 2012, the station's owners had filed for its bankruptcy.
Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky and Israeli President Yitzhak Herzog attended the official commemoration ceremony of the victims of the Babi massacre on Wednesday evening, remembering one of the largest massacres of Jews during the Holocaust. Let's take a look at the report.
Місце, яке Господь покинув назавжди, а диявол оминає стороною. Це таке місце.
It has been 80 years since Nazi troops gunned down some 34,000 Jewish men, women, and children at the wooded ravine in Babi Yar, in one of the deadliest single massacres of the Holocaust. Over the 2 years that followed, nearly 150,000 people, mostly Jewish, would be killed there. Now, this September and October, Ukraine is commemorating the tragic events.
У цьому місці нацисти розстріляли більше 100 тисяч людей. У цьому місці важко говорити, на тисячі років його окупувала тиша. У цьому місці важко дихати, тисячі дітей зробили тут останній подих. У цьому місці важко стояти. Тисячі куль збивали з ніг убитих саме тут, в урочищі Babi Yar.
On Wednesday evening, the Israeli and Ukrainian presidents gathered for an official ceremony for the unveiling of a new interactive memorial, Crystal Wall of Crying, by world-renowned performance artist Marina Abramovic. The wall is meant to be a symbolic extension of the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem and incorporates crystals from the Ukraine and Brazil in an interactive installation. The 40-meter-long structure now stands in a park built over the site of the Babi Yar ravine.
It's a really wall for healing, and it's wall to remember, and it's wall to public to actually interact all the time. It's not something, I don't like monuments that you have the huge monument and you stand in the front and you look to the monument. It's just like you're voyeur. Here, you have to touch, you have to interact, you have to turn, and you have to, confront yourself with yourself and your own memory. So it's a very different way of seeing art and seeing the monuments.
At the ceremony, both Israeli and Ukrainian presidents also warned against repeating the mistakes of the past and cautioned against a new surge of anti-Semitism.
בל נטעה, גם בימים האלה הכחשת שואה עדיין קיימת, האנטישמיות עדיין קיימת. רק ביממה האחרונה שמענו כולנו על עוד גילוי אנטישמיות מכוער במחנה ההשמדה אושוויץ בדמותן של כתובות גרפיטי אנטישמיות שמבזות את זכר הנספים במחנה המוות הנורא. עלינו על כל מנהיגי המדינות לגנות בתוקף כל בדל וקצה תופעה כזו ולהילחם בה בכל כוחנו. ההנצחה והזיכרון חיוניים לאנושות כולה נגד הרוע, האכזריות והאדישות, כדי שלא נשכח איזו שואה יכול לעשות אדם לאדם במעשה, בשתיקה, ועד אנה עלולות להגיע השנאה, הבורות, האנטישמיות והגזענות.
Now in other news, traffic. It's a horrible reality and one that will be with us indefinitely. Or will it? World giant Google has decided to try and tackle this problem as part of a wider effort to combat climate change. And it's doing so right here in Israel. Let's take a look. Alphabet Inc.'s Google has said it cut fuel use and traffic delays by 10 to 20%, all by using artificial intelligence to optimize signal lights.
Inefficient traffic lights are bad for the environment and they're bad for public health. And that's because idling cars, they mean wasted fuel and more street-level air pollution. So we see a really great opportunity for AI to help create a breakthrough change. So instead of manually measuring and calculating timings, one of our AI research groups has found a way to accurately calculate the traffic conditions and the timing at most intersections in cities around the world. And then they're training a model on that data to optimize those inefficient intersections.
As such, the new pilot program was conducted in Israel with promising results.
So to date, the team has conducted pilots at 4 locations in Israel in partnership with the municipalities of Haifa, Beersheba, and the Israel National Roads Company. And so far, we've observed a 10 to 20% reduction in fuel and intersection delay time. So it is early days, but on the back of these really promising results, we are now beginning new pilots in Rio de Janeiro and speaking with other cities around the globe.
This early-stage research project is just one of the new software initiatives launched by Google as part of the company's efforts to tackle climate change. CEO of Google Alphabet, Sundar Pichai, wrote a blog post and released a video on Wednesday saying that climate change is no longer a distant threat, but is increasingly local and personal. As such, in addition to the AI traffic light pilot, Pichai announced that Google was introducing new features to book flights and purchase appliances that have lower carbon footprints, a Nest program to support clean energy from home, and eco-friendly routing on Google Maps.
Today, climate change is the most profound risk we face, one that affects our health, our economies, and our future together on this planet. At Google, we view big risks as a challenge and as an opportunity. Last year, we committed to help 1 billion people make more sustainable choices by 2022 through our core products like Google Maps and Search. In all of these efforts, our goal is to make the sustainable choice an easier choice. Individually, these choices might feel small, but when you multiply them together across our products, they equal big transformations for the planet.
Now, many of ILTV's viewers have dreamed of visiting Israel or even moving to the Holy Land. Well, now you can, and you can do so in style. ILTV reporter Candace Tolman visited one of Israel's leading luxury real estate apartments on the beautiful Mediterranean coast. Let's take a look.
If you're looking for the finest of Israeli luxury, then look no further than Briga Real Estate. And today we're showing you their penthouse suites located in their flagship residence against the backdrop of the Mediterranean Sea. This 700-meter apartment offers you a front row seat to the beach. And if that's not enough, you also get your very own indoor pool. Talk about exclusivity. The Briga Penthouse provides all the pampering of a world-class hotel, but with the intimacy and the family atmosphere of a home. What more could one want? Plus, as a resident here, you'll have full access to the tower's facilities, from an Olympic-sized swimming pool and sauna to a beach volleyball court. Briga even offers sunbathing beds and shades on the beach, so that you can enjoy the luxe life wherever you so desire. Tell me a bit about Briga Real Estate and its history.
Briga established in 1979, almost 40 years. It's a family company. They took and they made a very luxury towers, and they know how to build it very good on the beach. You can build some very luxury towers all over, but to know how to build it on the beach, you need to be very, very specific in this.
So tell me a bit about the thought process behind the design aesthetic of this insane house.
We try to find the best designer who will fit the taste of all kinds of people. In this room, we try to twist a little bit, and we took Bentley because we thought to combine a car of Bentley together with this apartment.
Tell me a bit what makes this penthouse different to all the other luxury penthouses available on the market.
Briga thought what to do on the 33rd floor. We took the 33rd floor between the 32nd floor and the 30th, and we put inside soil.
I see, so you made like a home in the sky.
Home in the sky. So in this difference, we can put the infinity pool, we can put the trees, we can put an elevator, real elevator for 6 passengers. This made all the difference.
We've mentioned some of the insane facilities that you guys have, but word on the street is that there's a synagogue.
Yeah, downstairs we have a synagogue, a private synagogue just for our residents. And we are using this synagogue all over the holidays, during Shabbat. All the citizens here become like a small community, and it's really unique. You can't find, I think, in all over Israel, a private residential tower with a private synagogue.
And remember, this apartment is already fully furnished to perfection. So if you want that brigger lifestyle, then all you need to do is pack a suitcase and yalla on over to the very best that Israel has to offer.
All right, yet again, Israeli archaeologists proving that we are not so different from our ancestors. The Antiquities Authority unveiling the latest discoveries from the Armon HaNatziv promenade in the city of David, Jerusalem. And boy, are they humanizing. Just a stone's throw from the governor's mansion in Jerusalem's Armon HaNatziv neighborhood, Israel Antiquities excavators still sifting through a magnificent building that overlooked the city of David and the Temple Mount during the 7th century BCE. The structure initially uncovered roughly 2 years ago.
Probably a palace of one of the kings of the Judean kingdom. This is about 2,700 years ago. We found gorgeous ornamented stones carved as capitals, window frames, window balusters, gorgeous stuff. And we had another surprise as well, something which was very rare, found in only a few locations in Israel and in Jerusalem. That is someone's private bathroom.
It may not look like much, but this first temple period throne was truly fit for a king. The bathroom was hewn by hand from limestone into a rectangular-shaped cabin with a cube-shaped toilet, including a carved-out seat for comfort, a deep septic tank below, and a hole down the middle. And then from within the septic tank itself, researchers finding and collecting a large cache of pottery, animal bones, and soil filler. Archaeologists are hoping that the samples will teach us about the lifestyles and diets of our ancestry. But what we know for sure already is that this property definitely belonged to a member of the elite or even royalty.
This is a very rare find because this is something that only the rich people had. 1,000 years later, the rabbis and the Talmud discussed what the criterions are for a rich person, how much money he has in his bank. One rabbi suggested that if he has a toilet in his home near the table where he sits to eat, he is a rich person.
Though if that's not enough proof for you, the IAA also identifying evidence of a garden with ornamental trees, fruit trees, and aquatic plants on the property, all within reach of the toilet cubicle. You know, because who wouldn't appreciate a poo with a view? And that's it for ILTV's Weekly Review. I'm Aaron Porras. See you next week.